Hello, everybody. This is Vincent. I'm back and I'm working on my fifth video. And I know you're looking at the shirt. Remember what I told you about the shirt? If I'm wearing the same shirt, it's most likely because I have made two, maybe three, who knows, maybe four videos that day because I love making these videos. So if you see the same shirt, it means I made the video the same day. No, I did not avoid putting it in the hamper. No. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, originally I was going to answer the question, has the Watchtower harmed me? And that's a good topic, but we're going to talk about that a little later because what I want to get into is the trauma that I experienced when I left the Watchtower Society. And as I talk about these things, I just want to say that I'm going to intermingle some of the processes that awakened me. So it's going to be just a kind of a clutter of thoughts I want to share. So let's talk about this trauma. When you awaken as a Jehovah's Witness, and as I mentioned many times, if you're fully indoctrinated, this whole matrix will explode, and it creates within you a tremendous amount of pain. No one can understand this unless you've escaped a cult or some other high control religion. It is so scary, and you will see as I continue on that sometimes you don't even know if you're going to live. I mean, when I first woke up, and with anyone who wakes up, what you're trying to do, I remember getting up in the morning and I would keep all my thoughts to myself. In the evenings, I was quiet. I was sitting in my chair trying to, get control of my life. I didn't want to lose control. But at the same time, I wanted to tell my kids what was going on. And I had mentioned this online in my story, but it's true how my children would come over and they even described me like I was demon possessed because I felt like I was having an out-of-the-body experience. I was trying to tell them about the Watchtower Society and what I found and everything. It was really out of character with who I am and the way I was expressing myself. But that's because you have been under such mind control and you've been brainwashed. Your whole brain was rewired in the Watchtower Society, and now you literally are short-circuiting now, and it affects how you feel. And so I really thought I was going crazy. I even thought maybe I was being possessed. And there was a point when I agreed with my sons to go to the elders in the congregation and tell them the way I feel and the things that I have seen. And I'll be honest with you, I went back to them because I did not want what I discovered to be true. See, that's another misconception that a lot of witnesses have. They've been taught that these so-called apostates, these people that leave, have all these hateful feelings. I had mentioned that before. But in all actuality, you are hurting so bad inside because you wish you can go back. You want everything you've seen to not be true. When I first woke up, what effect did it have on me physically? Well, I just described something there, but for about 6 months after I left the Watchtower Society, I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to have a heart attack, not just one day or 2 days. Every day for about 6 months, my chest ached. I mean, even at night, my heart hurt. It's like running around a track for 5 miles and how your chest feels. That's the way it felt every day. And I couldn't breathe. I'd wake up, shortness of breath. I couldn't even go out to my truck. Okay. When I would go to work, it took every ounce of strength I had to go walk out to my truck, because when I got to my truck in my front yard there, I could hardly breathe. And then I would go to work, and I'm a drywall finisher, so sometimes you got to go upstairs, right? I mean, working at a house. I could hardly get up 10 stairs and then have to stop because I thought my heart was going to stop. And this went on and on. And one day I even had a regular checkup with a doctor. It was just a routine thing I did. And they said that my blood pressure was elevated. And they wanted to know if I had anything going on in my life. Why? Because my blood pressure has always been perfect throughout my life. But this time it was elevated. And I wanted so bad to release everything that has happened to me and all of my feelings to that nurse. But I didn't, of course. But it really was affecting my health, and mentally it was just, like I said, I thought I was going crazy. I would go to work, and I wrote all this down, as I said before, but I want to talk about it again, and that is, I would go to work, and I'm in construction, and a lot of times I work by myself. I mean, I'll go to these houses. I'm a drywall taper, so I'm working by myself, and with taping, sometimes it involves some heavier tools, and other times it's easy. But I could hardly work. I mean, my chest ached, and I couldn't hardly breathe, and it took so long to finish little tasks. And it was raining and raining, because that's what happens in the Pacific Northwest. It rains, and normally rain doesn't bother me, but day after day I would be going to these jobs, and I could barely work 15 minutes, a half hour at most, but I had to always put my tools down, and I would go sit on my bucket. I always have a bucket with me to sit down, sit on that bucket, and I would just cry like a baby, just cry, because I was hurting so bad inside because of what happened. I even thought about suicide. Now, some may wonder, well, did he really think about killing himself? If you could kill yourself, you probably would, but I didn't think that deeply about it. What I did was I thought about all the people that have killed themselves when they discovered what I've discovered, because there are a number of ex-witnesses that have killed themselves, just like any other cult, any other high control religion. They've killed themselves because they can't deal with what they found. What kept me going, though, is the fact that, I have grandchildren, I have children, and I thought about all those people that need me. And so, however, that didn't make my pain disappear. I mean, it'd be day after day after day. I mean, if you walked into a house, you would always see me crying in that dark house, because I just was hurting so bad. And this went on and on and on. And it wasn't just at work. I mean, in the middle of the night, you'd wake up every night. I mean, we're talking all around the clock. You'd wake up and your heart was hurting, and you'd get up and you'd just take your phone, and and you'd be reading and rereading everything about the Watchtower Society, and it was frightening at times. I mean, your whole life was just coming apart, and there was no going back at this point. You knew you'd been lied to, and the reason why that's so traumatic is because, as a witness, if you've been raised a witness, you only have one worldview, one view of the world. You wake up and you don't even know who you are. You don't even know what you are. You have no clue what's your purpose. I mean, you start to wonder, did I even really believe in God? Did I really believe in Christ? Is the Bible really God's word? I mean, what's going on here? And you're literally just falling apart. I don't know if you ever seen that movie Amityville Horror from the 70s, and that guy sitting in his living room and he says, I'm coming apart. Oh, by the way, that's a story in itself. I'm going to talk about that much later. I never seen a horror film until actually I left the Watchtower, and I watched that. But that's actually part of my testimony, and that I'm going to talk about later. Speaking of testimony, when I am sharing these stories, every now and then you're going to hear a little spiritual gem. It's a gem for me that happened during this time, but it really didn't take on greater meaning, or I didn't understand what was happening at that point. until much later, and now I look back and I'm like, okay, that was God's hand in the matter. But you're going to hear that from time to time, especially with this subject of the trauma that I experienced after the Watchtower. So my life was just coming apart, and I did not know what to do with it. In fact, one day I was driving to work, and it was a beautiful day. I mean, it was golden outside, and normally that's a great thing, right? But this particular day, I remember exactly where I was on the road. I was driving my truck and looking out at this field with these trees and all, and that day, the entire landscape to me looked foreign. I felt like an alien on some planet, like, where am I? What is the purpose of all of this? It was a terrible feeling that I had, and like I said, I could hardly work. I could hardly eat, I could hardly breathe. It was horrendous. In fact, it got so bad that I even thought I needed a counselor. Fortunately, I did go to a counselor one day, and that counselor said, no, you're doing fine. You don't need a counselor. It's because what she's seen was that I knew who I was. She made it clear that, you keep saying you're a Jehovah's Witness, and you keep saying you're a Christian, but you were never those. You were given those titles. You were told that that's who you are, but you never were. And I was able to see that. And so she said I didn't need counseling. So after that, though, my life continued, but I continued for months to experience all of this physical pain, and my mind. I literally thought I was losing my mind during that time period. So we're at the 11-minute mark. So I mainly wanted to mention that those initial feelings of leaving the Watchtower and how it affected me physically, and mentally. However, there's so much more to that as far as how it affected me. And so I want to talk about that more. And I'm pretty sure I'll stick to that subject in my next video. But we're going to talk about also, too, a couple of spiritual things that happened, where my mind was at that time, and yeah, we'll talk about those things. But for now, we're going to conclude the video, and I will be with you shortly on my next video. And hopefully, I have a different shirt on. All right.